Welcome to the Post Float Podcast.
Don't tell me how to righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
I thought you were trying to do something.
I had a dad once. I've been educated. Are we live? We rolling?
We're going.
Cool. All right, man. So, 60 minutes, baby.
That's good.
Sensory deprivation, isolation, and here we are talking in front of an audience of people. It's quite surreal.
And we're back.
We are. We're here. Episode number 2 of the Post Float Podcast. So we'll start this off proper. We are drinking. Yeah. What you got there, Jesse?
I have some Four Sigmatic mushroom coffee.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Don't let them fool you. What do you normally drink there?
I normally drink espresso, blacker than the blackest black.
What's that brand you always get though?
It's Cafe Bustelo.
Straight from like Walgreens.
Yep.
The good stuff, man. Forged and ground in the beaks of nursing birds, regurgitated it and packaged for your experience.
It's like my favorite sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
It's blacker than the blackest black.
I am drinking a LaCroix, a nice sparkling water with mild flavor to say the least, yet very satisfying. I believe this water comes straight from the gardens of Atlantis.
Whew.
Yes, 0 sodium it says, but none the least, it is making Atlantis great again. That's what we're doing.
That's gross.
Thank you, LaCroix.
It's gross.
I don't know. Episode 2, trying to get some sponsors, doing our best here. Is that the best approach?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, well, come on, LaCroix. We could use you. Also, can we like get in trouble for slander or libel or something? It really is from Atlantis. I mean, I'm not lying about that. That's where LaCroix comes from. So
Yeah,
it's accurate, right?
You can't get in trouble for the truth.
No, man. If you literally type it on Google, does LaCroix come from the water from the gardens of Atlantis? You'll find it's probably accurate.
Oh man, I think it comes from the latrine of Atlantis.
Oh, how dare you? How dare you? It's the best.
Oh man, it tastes terrible.
It's satiating, thirst quenching. It's got bubbles in it. If you put in those little sippy cups, like when you give your kids like carbonated water, it's hilarious. So they'll be sitting there for 5 minutes and they'll go to open up the little sippy cup and just squirts them in their face. Harper said she was sitting at lunch the other day and she had her new little water cup and we had what's the other one? Stevia. Stevia is a really popular one, right? But it's like $1 million a can. So anyway, give her Stevia. She's sitting at lunch and she's like, "Oh, I gotta tell you this story, Dad." She's like, "So I grab it, I put it in my mouth, luckily, to pull the tab, to open it up, and it just squirts right in her mouth, and all the kids at the table start laughing, and she starts laughing and made like brand new friends off it."
Oh,
so
nice.
You know what? Oh, we might have to bump LaCroix next week. Maybe it's Stevia, making new friends, right?
Oh, yeah.
Since kindergarten.
Yeah, there you go. There's your new slogan,
Yes.
Stevia.
All right.
Making new
Creating
friends
friends
since
since kindergarten. So we'll open this up. We were gonna try something today on the second podcast. Basically, we plan on taking an intention.
Yep, this week
into the float.
we took an intention with us.
So both of us have been absorbing a lot of Mark Manson literature. Shout out to Mark.
Soup.
Awesome. And yeah, so I don't know. We thought we spoke right before our float, and they're like, hey, let's float on an idea. Let's take an intention in, and I guess see what happens. So I haven't even asked Jesse how his float was yet. Anything prior to this? Nothing. So
yeah, we can kind of set it up too for the listener, just because. So yeah, like you said, we have been reading a lot of Mark Manson.
Yep.
The book is called Earmuffs, Children.
That's a weird title.
Everything. No. The book is called Everything's Fucked.
It is, yes.
So yeah, now that your earmuffs are off, kids.
Yeah.
It's a book about hope, and it's great. And so we are at this part of the book where he starts to talk about this philosopher. And so before we get too deep into this, disclaimer, we are both experts in nothing, so we're going to kind of talk out of our wheelhouse a little bit, but...
Oh, way out of our wheelhouse. Let's be honest. So the cool thing about being able to say you're an expert in nothing is, first, it's self-deprecating, right? In a way, right? It's beautiful. But if you give me my superpower hero like Shazam or something like that, right? He's only Shazam when he says Shazam. Or Superman has kryptonite. So as long as he's not around kryptonite, he's Superman. Well, I'm literally an expert in nothing in a self-deprecating way, unless I can like don the cape of my float tank and go in there. But at that point, I literally have obtained the skill of being an expert in nothing. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of got like a double entendre.
Yes, very much. There you go. Yes.
So yeah, we do, not claim to be experts in philosophy or life, just nothing. But this book that Mark Manson has talks about Immanuel Kant and his formula for humanity.
Yeah.
But before we even get there, like that's kind of what we decided we were going to float on today was Immanuel Kant's formula for humanity.
More specifically, unconditionality, right?
Yep.
What does that mean? It's pretty easy to, state descriptively, Webster style, what being unconditional is. However, when you try to imply that into just your everyday life, what does that mean?
Oh, man.
And so, yeah, we thought it'd be cool to float on that. So I first and foremost need to ask her before we get into this, how was your float?
I thought you'd never ask. It was great. It was way, way, way easier than last week.
Yeah,
I had
good,
no
man.
trouble giving a dang about how stupid I'm going to sound today. But yeah, conditionality, man. What is it? It's crazy because you have to have conditions to live, right? But like, what is unconditional love? So you always hear this like, love unconditionally. Like, what is that? I don't know. Like, it's loving removed. Like with, I'm gonna love you till like it's a song. It's like a song lyric. You know what I mean? Like until the end of time, no matter what. But I don't know. It's there's a lot to unpack that just goes into what unconditional is.
Right. And that was why it was fun. We were going to try to float on it because technically it's really simple, right? Love without expecting love in return. Unconditional. Boom. And I think I
Where's
cheat.
dinner?
I cheat on this test a little bit having kids, obviously. You that just comes with it, right? It comes right out of the box. It's unconditional. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay. I get it. But you can complicate it too. And so I think when you try to nuance and fit everything into your everyday life, or especially, you meet people that are like, oh, this is what you got to do. And then all of a sudden that person responds with, well, what about this? And you're like, but this is what you're supposed to do. That's where it was kind of fun to maybe attempt to take into the tank and dissect it a little bit and throw it into these different scenarios and just try to be more clear and concise on the idea. I have to admit, though, I thought about unconditionality and this project we're supposed to bring to this literal podcast for maybe about 5 minutes.
Yeah. I was totally prairie dogging it the whole time.
Are you serious?
Yes, dude. It's just like, oh yeah, okay, and then I'm like, beep, okay, now I'm over here. And I'm
Okay.
like,
I took prairie dogging as like you had to get out and take a shit.
prairie dogging it with my thoughts,
I was like,
man.
because there's no underwear there, man. Like, what were you doing there? That's sketchy. How dare you?
No, so yeah, that's a good
Yeah, you had the prairie dog.
You know what prairie dogging it is,
popping
but
in and
also-
out, man.
Yep.
No, I was in the exact same boat, and I tried to force it back in a couple of times, but like, I was having that might have been one of my funnest floats I've had in a while. Like floats are always, whatever they are, they're relaxing, they're great. You feel good, you went deep. Dude, I was freaking just playing the whole time, and it was hilarious because I'm no comedian. I have no intentions of ever wanting to be a comedian or anything like that. I just don't think I have the skill set to do that. But I was like doing this stand-up, routine the whole time and working on these little puns and writing little pitches and things like that. And it was hilarious. It was great, man, because, the audience was me. Mm-hmm. So, and, there was only like one heckler. It was no big deal. But nobody was paying attention to him.
Screw that guy.
Yeah. The hell with that guy, right? Everyone else thought it was hilarious. That's what matters. And yeah, so I literally spent the whole float like telling jokes in my head, man. And unfortunately, probably thought a couple of them were actually funny. But
did you bring any back with you?
You know what? I don't know. We literally came straight from the tank to here, so I haven't had time to say it outside of the tank or out loud or anything like that. But it was pretty fun, and it was kind of. I think it would be if I was a comedian, it'd be at the joke form where you're just starting to write it, like, "Oh, I got this great idea."
Yep.
And you write it down, and then the next day you realize it's absolutely terrible.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. So I just played. I literally played the whole time. I was having so much fun, and it went so fast. And then the music went. And I was like, "You got to be kidding me, man!"
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
I kind of had the same thing
Yeah.
where I was just like, because I was prairie dogging it
Yep.
between going
Yep.
like to focus on this intention of what is unconditionality,
Yep.
and then like just kind of noticing my self-awareness, like prairie dogging of like, I'm experiencing this as Jesse, 32-year-old earthling,
Right.
been experiencing this is all I know, and then letting that go, and then I'm just kind of there, and I'm experiencing, but not like through Jesse.
Okay.
It's just like being rather than experiencing. I don't know. It's really hard to describe.
It is,
but
man.
it's like my self is there, and it's like flip flopping.
Yep.
Like I'm here, and then I'm there.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because you have these you're not there type thoughts, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I am here. Now let's analyze what just happened.
Yep.
2 minutes ago, and then you're gone, and then you come back and you're like, oh, I'm gonna analyze that again, and yeah, you just dip in and out consistently like that. And I had the same experience, but yeah, those little moments where you're not analyzing in the moment when you're doing it, those are the cool ones, man, because it's almost like you could pretend, it's almost like being an actor or something weird, like all of a sudden, but without trying. You're literally watching this thing, you're not watching it and like like you're not looking at yourself on a screen going, what would I act like if I was like this? No, it literally just is.
Yeah.
But then you come back and you're like, okay, so I just did that. What was that like? But it's kind of a trip because it's
like the
almost
difference.
like you were that person.
It's like the difference from like watching a play to being in the play.
For sure. But not even like practicing for the play or being on the play, wondering what anybody's thinking about you. Am I doing this right? Am I going to get the right line? You are literally that person in the play. Like you become that character.
You're in the play, not knowing you're in a play.
Yeah, as
versus
yourself.
watching the play.
As a different person, if that makes any sense.
You guys keeping up with all this?
Yes. And it made another thought jump into my head. Jesse and I went to a bar and watched the UFC fights this weekend, which absolutely phenomenal. So good.
Nate
It's crazy.
Diaz.
But it was a trip too because I started thinking about, lowering inhibitions and things like that. Because you have those moments where you're like, whoa, was I just doing that? And then you come back and you reanalyze it and you're like, well, okay. Now in real life, when do people start allowing themselves to jump into these scenarios outside of a float tank or whatever? And obviously I'm not promoting drugs and alcohol, kids, just LaCroix and mushroom coffee. But I noticed, man, I like being a social drinker or a social drug user, I guess, non-recreationally. It does have that aspect of lowering those inhibitions to make you more vulnerable, to allow you to dive into these thoughts that are obviously there and kind of play around with them without, first of all, telling the story in your head, preparing it, wondering how you're going to be viewed, and then presenting it. But my whole point of this was going to a bar to watch the UFC fights is a terrible idea.
Yes.
Because everybody goes past that, hey, I'm going to have beer, I'm going to let some of these inhibitions go, and it's just going to make me more vulnerable, more fun, and more open and honest, like if I was in a float tank talking to another human being. No, they're there to get hammered. And it's terrible.
Yeah,
Being around drunk people is the worst. It's so terrible.
When you're wanting to focus on something.
Almost all the time.
Oh yeah, well, unless you're wanting to be the drunk person with the drunk people.
Yeah, you gotta subscribe to the same thing at that point in time. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like you're going into their world, buddy.
Jeez.
You gotta do what the Romans do.
Intention 1, Levi walking into the bar, UFC. Maybe have a beer.
Bad
Attention,
idea.
everybody else walking to the bar, get hammered. UFC's also on. And I was like, that's what this is. So yeah, that probably wasn't my favorite place to watch a fight, but
It's a condition of going into the bar.
it's true, man. But I was unconditionally wanting to watch those fights.
Oh man. Yeah, so we're coming back to Kant here, right?
Yeah.
Kind of bringing it back to that formula for humanity.
Yes.
Which, do you want to kind of set this up a little bit? Because we have Immanuel Kant, to give my prerequisites of philosophy, I squatted. Yes, you heard that right. Squatted. I showed up to a philosophy class at a college. I found an empty seat, and I asked the person sitting next to me if I could borrow their book. And
A lot of your metaphors revolve around taking a poop.
Well, that's life.
Prairie dog in a squad. That's true, right? If there's one thing I know. Sorry, proceed.
No, so I gotta be in the class. So not much. It's been 10 years, but so Kant. He was, I don't even remember, it was 1800s, is that correct?
Jeez, I know he's a mathematician.
Old, long ass time ago.
Law of large numbers kind of debate guy, but I don't know the year.
But he basically thought that consciousness was the most unique thing in the universe, right?
Right, yep.
So he developed this formula for humanity, creating a hierarchy based on that principle, correct?
That would be the overarching value principle, right?
So the formula is basically you're a conscious being, and you should treat other conscious beings as an end versus a means to an end.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's going to throw some people off.
Let's
first
unpack
question
this.
is like, what's a means, what's an end?
So
right?
let's unpack that here.
Come up with a quick analogy. So it's simply stated, when you utilize others as a means to an ends, you got to think of the means as what's going to get to the ends being a selfish thing that you want out of that means.
A desire, right?
A desire, or whatever it might be, where that other person is simply the means, or that whatever it might be. It could be a person, it could be anything.
A desired outcome,
You
right?
use it for yourself too, like hope for a better future. I'm going to do this, blah, blah, for this hope for this thing that I'm going to get, which is my selfish ends.
I mean, it's how we create things. It's how we, build. We have a desired outcome. We have an ends that we want to get to.
Right.
We need to develop these means to get to that
right.
end.
But you can still do that unconditionally. And so a good example is your wife wants to go shopping, etc., whatever. Maybe go get some blinds, things like that. And you're like, I don't really want to do that. But if I go, she's going to be really happy. She's going to let me go out with the guys. I'm going to go golfing tomorrow.
I'm going to go watch those UFC fights downtown,
yes,
bro.
Yes, that's what I did. I conditionally used those means. No. But yeah, so go to the wife, go to the store. You don't really want to be there, and you're not there unconditionally just because you know it's going to make your wife happy. You're there because you're utilizing this as a means. So therefore, you can use it as ammunition, basically, to then present your case to where, hey, I'm going to go golfing with the guys tomorrow. This is going to make it harder for her to give me a hard time because maybe I did it last week, etc. Obviously, this is an obvious example of, pretty cringeworthy, man. I mean, kind of being a dick, and so it's a pretty obvious example of utilizing your wife to go to the store, acting like, you're trying to be, a good partner, everything else. But really the reason you're doing it is so you can go golfing tomorrow, or that you have a better chance to go golf tomorrow, or that you have ammunition to get yourself what you want.
Thus it's conditional.
Yes, that makes it conditional, just like anything. Where it starts getting a little more complicated, and maybe not, but I think it's really simple. But when people talk about love or respect or trust, and it's hard to be trusting, etc., but you're making this conditional on you getting it in return, and this is where it gets a little tricky, right? Like, the only way to love somebody unconditionally is to love them whether they love you back or not. To accept the consequences, that, hey, that's just the way it is. But we're human beings, and so we like affection, we like to have validation, we love things like that, and so we do seek it. And so even if you're not being that guy that just wants to go golf and use your wife, you still might do these lovey-dovey things, and then you might be disappointed when you're not receiving it in return. Even though you did it thinking, I want to be nice to my wife and everything else, the fact that you want it in return, that you think it needs to be returned, is conditional.
Right.
So it gets a little bit, more nuanced there, where it's like, oh, wait, but I did this really nice thing. I mean, they should be nice back to me. That's still conditional.
That's a condition.
So it's not as obvious, but 100% conditional. The only way to be unconditional is to love unconditionally, which means literally, I love you, Jesse, man, and if you don't love me back, whatever, and I don't anticipate I can't expect it. That's it. I mean, it's that simple. Same with respect or trust. The best way to make somebody trust you is just to trust them unconditionally. And I shouldn't even said it like that. The best way to make somebody trust you, because that sounds conditional. But honestly, the best way to produce trust, I guess, is just to trust unconditionally with no bargaining, nothing.
Yeah. So that is that kind of lays out for that formula for humanity, being treating conscious beings as a means to your end. So you're going to the golf is the ends.
Yep.
Doing something nice for your wife is the means to get to that end.
Right.
Thus, you're creating a condition.
Yeah.
And so what he's saying is that if you're a conscious being, you're good enough. That's good enough for love, baby.
And that
right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Love. But I don't know. So the interesting thing about it is I don't want to go too far on this or make anybody uncomfortable either, but some people might wonder, why would anybody seek that, et cetera. And
seek what?
An overarching hierarchy or an overarching value for just living in humanity. I mean, people have other reasons or other things that they can introduce into their life that gives them hope for a better future, et cetera. And it could still be semi unconditional. But with Immanuel Kant, what it was he subscribed to the uncomfortable truth that a lot of us don't like to subscribe to. And I think in a lot of instances it would create a lot of existential angst, etc. But the basic premise being like, what's the meaning of life, and accepting that you can't answer this. So therefore,
the uncomfortable truth being Mark Manson's uncomfortable truth, correct?
Yeah, primarily. But I mean, Kant obviously had the same realization that he, even though you might want to not admit it, things like that, he was at a point where he realized that in the cosmic scale of things, it's meaningless.
Right, yeah.
All of it, everything you've done, everything you're going to do, etc., it's utterly meaningless in the overall cosmic scale of things. Period.
Right.
Like,
so that's the uncomfortable truth.
And so then what do you do there? So if you subscribe to that uncomfortable truth, which most people avoid the best they can, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the things that most people spend their whole day doing. What do you do there, man? What do you, like, you got two steps. You got nihilism, right? You got utter meaningless, like, despair. What Kant did is he realized that he was going to gap that abyss. And the way he gapped that abyss is he accepted that uncomfortable truth. He accepted the fact that, his life is meaningless, utterly. But he had an overarching value that was consciousness. As we know right now, and, could be different. There might be others in the universe, but we're the only being that has that ability to change its environment. We're self-aware, conscious, everything. And so his number one value was that no matter what, why you treat yourself and everybody else as merely an ends and never a means to an ends is because the overarching value is consciousness. Mm-hmm. So everything you do is predicated on that value, that moral, that overarching human moral of making sure consciousness continues to progress and become more complex and pushing that forward, because otherwise it doesn't exist.
Right.
I mean, it's just not there. I mean, for every, like, but it's really unconditional in and of itself, because there is no you in that. There's not even a symbolic you in that.
Right.
I mean, the physical you goes away. We obviously know the symbolic you, it gets crushed with that too. But you got to be willing to accept that uncomfortable truth. And the way he did that was he accepted it. And not only did he accept it, but he created still something to replace the mechanism of hope with inside his mental capacity of, well, what do I, now it's meaningless. Why do I do anything?
Right.
But no, now it was more meaningful than everything, because consciousness was what the value was. And so everything he did and everything that he says espouses that anybody should do is maintain that, so it can become more complex and expound and maybe one day be, in the stars and everything else, and that it continues forth, because if you don't, it won't. And
not to give hope a bad rap.
Yeah.
But it's conditional.
Yeah, hope's conditional.
So yeah. So it's like,
that's where it gets tricky. That's why I wasn't even sure if I should bring that part up, because a lot of people are going to be uncomfortable with that, and they're just like, no.
Hey, don't tell me what I'm going to think, pal.
That's the real earmuffs, man. It's definitely not bad words, right? The real earmuffs is not allowing, if you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to throw something out there that's probably going to affect your comfort level. Your security blanket you might tuck yourself in at night that tells you everything's going to be okay. And it's a whack-a-mole game. Like Mark said, I mean, it's literally, you're just constantly, you got to come up with a new game constantly. You got to field that, you got to feed that. You got to feed that mechanism hope all the time. If you don't, it will stop. You have to feed it consistently. So you're always just hoping for a better future, which doesn't sound that bad on the surface, but that's terrible, man. You're not just a better now.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say that's terrible. I mean, you do what you want to do, but that's kind of the 5 minutes worth I thought about in the float tank. Was I was like, I would way rather be comfortable with the uncomfortable truth and accept unconditionality, and just, I'm okay with it. Just be okay with it. It's cool. It's all right.
Yeah. I mean, we're on that flying rock, cruising through outer space. It's just like vast and empty, down to our, like, the atoms, right? Like, they're all, everything's pretty much empty, and just seems like there's not a lot of meaning
I
that.
think it was Ellen Watts who said something when I was younger, when I started, struggling with the idea of, meaningless or what's life all about, et cetera, which is this cyclical, nonsensical question that you can't answer. But he said, I believe there was a quote he wrote or something about, I don't remember what the quote was, but basically it was summarized was that to experience nothing is impossible. But that was my fear as a kid. So as a kid, when I started contemplating, just literally those
questioning what happens after you die.
Nope, I'm gonna grab this. Nope, that feels good. I'll take that. Yeah, those feel good. But I just couldn't shut it off. So, but once I read that, it helped me a lot, because my fear as a child was like, yeah, well, if there's nothing, that's gonna be terrible. It's just black and nothing forever. Be like, not really. You can't experience nothing. You can't. It's not like you're going to be sitting there analyzing how terrible nothing is. It's just nothing. And I know that sounds maybe bad to some people, but for me, that was beautiful. I was like, thanks, man. Yeah, I want to experience it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's like there's nothing to worry about there.
No, that's the whole point. Like, dude, there's nothing to worry about in nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You can't sit there and analyze nothing. Like the full on nothing of nothingness is there's nothing there.
Right. That's like when you wake up in the float tank.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you can't experience nothing. You were just You're analyzing what
I think
nothing you experienced post.
Yeah, I see
nothing.
And that's where it becomes semantic, I guess, because in the float tank, it's not utterly nothing, right? So yeah, you do experience that. And I don't know if maybe I could be stuck in a float tank for eternity. Maybe, I don't know. I like that place, but it'd be lonely. And that's the thing is, I think it's the loneliness that really freaks people out. And to be honest with you, when we're social creatures, what's the very worst thing that you can do to a human being? Solitary confinement.
Yeah,
it's the worst thing.
yeah.
You can send somebody to prison, you can do all these terrible things, you can take away their freedoms, etc., and it still can get worse than that, because you can stick them in a little place where they're not even with another terrible person, maybe. Like, literally, they would way rather, like, you're in a cell with some dude that, you would rather be there than solitary confinement. We're social. And so I think the fear of loneliness is really one of the predicating things that makes that just so uncomfortable.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day, with how all of life is basically just electrical experiences, getting turned in, getting signaled to my brain,
right?
And then I try to take that experience and then transform the air to wiggle, to beat the drum in your head.
Quit beating my drums
to
man.
Make sense so you can experience the same experience that I experienced,
Exactly.
like,
and that's a skill, man.
I'm touching this table, I'm feeling this table,
right.
And then so I'm going to try to explain to you what this table is. And so basically all of life is just everybody going, are you seeing that?
Right.
And
you want other people to see it.
Because you want to share
experience. That's what we're doing right now. That's technology. Like, language in and of itself is a technology. I don't think people ever view it that way. Like, all the grandpas out there, like, this technology is ruining the world. Don't get me wrong. I agree what you're saying. But if you break it down in kind of a fun way, writing is a technology.
Yeah.
Language is literally a technology. Writing, pictures, things are the very first technology. And that's exactly what it is. You're taking these visceral thoughts, these emotions, everything else inside your brain, and you're trying to figure out how to basically stick them in somebody else's brain so that they feel the same visceral or emotional response that you might
catches. You never actually know.
You don't even know if you don't know.
Yeah, right.
You might actually feel it, but you'll never know. You'll never know if somebody actually articulates it inside the same way that you meant to present it or the same way that you feel about it. But we're always trying to do that. And why? It's for connection.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's the thing, is like you want the social connection. And I do find it profound, though, that I'll take this thought. I just said profound. So it's my new rule. I think I said profound.
We're going to do a counter. Anytime Levi says profound, we're going to get a little one, like right up here in the corner.
What's more profound about it is I don't even say profound in real life. Man. Like, only when I'm on a podcast or something. Profound just comes flowing out. It's quite profound. All right, that's the limit right there. 5. So yeah, you literally are. You're sending these wavelengths, through the air. You're creating a vibration. It's going to hit this eardrum inside of your ear. It's going to hit this little bone. This bone's going to hit this cochlea or whatever it's called. I don't remember. It's been a long time. Mm-hmm. And then there's all these filaments and everything else that are going to go and resonate that and try to give you the same thing that was in my head. That's insane.
Yeah, that's life,
it's
baby.
Crazy. Yeah. Do we have to?
All right, we're gonna have to stop.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want to keep rolling after this?
Yeah, sure.
Sum it up. So we have this DSLR camera that we're using to film this, and apparently they only let you do 29 minutes of video. And Jesse was telling me something that it was because they could then
it's a tariff
issue.
Yeah, so they can sell these DSLR cameras as photography cameras for a cheaper tariff as long as they can't film longer than 29 minutes and 59 seconds. If it films 30 minutes or more, it's considered a video camera, and a higher tariff comes with that.
That's so confusing me. So, but there's not an overarching tariff. So, I mean, but anyway, there are cameras that do it now, though. So I saw that.
Yeah, it's like these older ones.
Yeah, I did see there's a bunch of cameras now that aren't cheap that you can film indefinitely with, which is pretty cool. So yeah, we always have to kind of pay attention to how long we've been going so we can start the timer again.
Sup?
So I thought it'd be kind of interesting. So we obviously haven't even touched about anything that we were actually supposed to talk about. But coming back to unconditionality, I found that there's a trade-off there also between being conditional but also being societally, complacent, basically. Like, society says we should act a certain way, be this certain way, and so it almost forces you to be conditional in your approach in a lot of things. And what I thought would be interesting is if you take intention and unconditionality, they really go hand in hand together. So
please explain.
I don't really know exactly how I want to describe it, but easy one, cursing. Right?
Okay.
Like, this podcast is fucking amazing. Right? We all know that. That might offend somebody, but at the same time, first and foremost, I'm being unconditional. I'd be conditional if I changed myself to predicate something, because I'd be using you as a means to my selfish ends to make sure you like me. I'm subscribing to the same cultural norms and everything else and taboos that everybody else does. I don't, isolate myself. Those are all means to my own selfish end to look better. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that. Now, this could go two ways, because you can have good intent, you can have malintent, right? Mm-hmm. But as long as you have good intent and there's not malintent involved in that, man, you got the best of both worlds. You're being unconditional and you're well-intented. So cussing is one of the ones that's always just blown my mind. And I even got a hard time when I was younger. I normally cuss probably even a lot more than this. I'm being slightly conditional, and
I mean, me too.
Yeah, right. and I don't. But the thing is, you don't have time to explain every one of your thoughts. I mean, people don't have time to listen to it either. So it's not like I can say something and then make sure that I fully break it down for everybody. Why I did this? Why I wasn't trying to hurt anybody's feelings, or why it's okay. We don't have time for that. So we do certain things conditionally, just based off the premise that we don't have time. We do have to function within a society that runs a certain way, and if you could get in some trouble. I mean, not if you're a good person. I'm not saying that. If you're a good human being, Bill and Ted, that's the philosophy of life, right?
Yeah. Be excellent to each other.
They nailed it. Don't need anything else. But you're almost forced into a little box of conditionality at times, especially running a business. Like, this is creates some dissonance sometime if you're really working on being unconditional. You're really working on being honest. So where I was going with this was, in the float tank, I started thinking about wool socks.
Okay.
So I'm going camping at the end of this week, and going to Iceland, and I'm like, man, it's gonna be wet, so I need to have some more wool socks. I have like 2 pairs of wool socks, and I was like, well, if they get soaked, they got to dry. So smart wool socks, they're like $20 a pair of socks. And I'm like, what's the difference between a wool socks with smart wool on it and just a normal wool sock? And so you start reading, because I'm half an idiot, literally. I mean, my genotype turned that pheno, that's me. And so I'm just not smart enough to see past the bullshit sometimes. And so if you can write enough things on a label, right? So smart wool socks, they're water permeable, or they're, this, they're that, they're antimicrobial, they're this, they're that, and you're like, well, is that just normal? Do they, what would they, I don't know. Is it better then? Is it worth the $20? And then you start going like, well, I could spend $5 and buy this one that just is called a wool sock, right? And so you always have this little imbalance. If you're like, do they know something I don't know? Or am I getting played here a little bit, And there's always that, for sure. And don't get me wrong, there's higher quality and less quality products, of course. But there is so much conditionality when it comes to trying to make money off the free market and things like this. And so you're always trying to maybe make your product sound a little bit better, a little bit, whatever. But trying to present that unconditionally. Like that would scroll over smart wool socks if it's like, it's the exact same sock. It just costs $15 more. But it's the same sock. And now I feel good about myself. My overarching value of human consciousness has been served, and here you go. And nobody buys your socks, and you go out of business, and a whole bunch of employees lose their job. But man, that's something that, it's weighty. And even doing this podcast, kind of piggybacking off Lost and Float and kind of being the face of Lost and Float, I have to be wary and conscious of things like that. And my biggest goal in life is to do everything unconsciously, to be as honest as I possibly can.
Do everything.
Oh, sorry. Unconditionally.
Unconditionally.
Yeah. Dude, I already do everything unconsciously. Yeah, I didn't even know I took that drink 5 minutes ago. Great. But yeah, that's where I thought when in the marketing world, it's just such a plur. But it would be cool if you could see the obvious. Like if you go buy this car versus that car, yeah, there's going to be things that are better and worse. You're going to spend the money for it. But where's that? When is it tip? And being able to describe that, like when I lived in Turkey for a while. You didn't just go and buy a Coca-Cola for $1. There's a dude selling Coca-Cola on the street and you barter with him. Just like you would buy a car here in town. I fucking hate that. I wish it cost $1. Here's $1. And then you can even tip. Like I always tip predicated on what I think of the person. And I love that. But I never know how much anything actually costs. The retail value versus the market value what is it? I mean, obviously I know what a Coke costs, but
man, I don't know. Like if it wasn't like that, I know nothing about economics, but wouldn't that, like, if you couldn't do that, wouldn't that be like socialism or something? Like where everything's the same.
Yeah,
we know what everything costs and what everybody makes and how.
I completely agree. Like with the Float Center, I try to build a product that adds value that maybe other float centers don't. Or not really float centers. I don't compete with other float centers, but I don't really compete with anybody. But honestly, I'm trying to. At the end of the day, you're selling a product, but that's not how I approach it. I approach this place as an environment. And we've discussed this many times. Like this is just my art, my canvas, and it's I think become a lot of yours too, And so I'm just drawing, man. I just keep drawing, and this is kind of my own personal playground, and I love it. And I can be completely unconditional about that and be like, look, I'm not trying to get you to come in here and subscribe to some ideology that I think floating is going to give you, or that you can go into a float tank and absorb magnesium and go into your past repressed life and fix it, and it was your daddy that did it, and yada yada, and see, everything's cool. See, that's what you need to do, and eat vegan food all day, and everything's going to be great. No, I just love floating, man. I love the idea of being by myself with my own thoughts for an hour.
Yeah,
it's had not going to say that word, man. Amazing. Results for me of just going through and doing that. And so I just open it up for other people, but I don't want to tell them it's going to do that. I don't want to tell you how to live. And a lot of products are kind of represented in a certain way to get you to like kind of fit in. And this is where I wanted to go with this is inside that book, when we start talking about being unconditional versus conditional, it takes growing up. And my whole point of this is I want to come at it from an adult perspective, where I'm just doing something perceived off the principle, the value, the overarching thing. If I see a piece of paper, laying on the ground when I'm filling up my tank with gas, I pick it up and I put it in the trash. Not because somebody's watching me or I'm going to get a gold star.
Right.
And not that, there's, even if it was a God figure, it's not because, I'm scoring fucking points to get through the pearly gates. It's just, I should just do that because it's the right thing to do.
For the sake of doing it.
For the sake of doing it. Now, if it's covered in something that looks like it might infect me and I'm going to die, I'm not going to pick it up. You know what I'm saying?
For the sake of doing it.
For the sake of doing it. And I don't even have to I didn't do it because of this and that and that, But going back to this so when you're born as a child, you don't have that, right? You have desirable, undesirable, pleasurable, and then you start to learn. And you go into adolescence, and we were talking about this a little bit pre-podcast, so what's the distinction between childhood to adolescence to adulthood, to where you can get to being this unconditional, premise.
Okay.
And I don't believe that can happen without a certain level of maturity. So in adolescence, it's still a means to an end.
So let's set this up. We got childhood.
That was the longest runabout to get to this ever.
Yeah. So we went from cussing to the free market. Back to unconditionality.
It's all just about intention and unconditionality being interwoven. But I think before I can go down that route, you do have to kind of start it growing up.
Right. So the human experience.
So we can all be on the same page. Yeah. The human experience of maybe growing up, what that means. Yeah.
You have a childhood. And so, I think you do a better job at kind of explaining this. But so it's like you have, the childhood. What does the child want? Right.
Right.
What is it? Go ahead.
Like what the child wants? Yeah. The child wants desire. Their hierarchy is fabricated on what gave them pleasure, what didn't give them pleasure. If they touch a hot stove, it burns. Don't like it, that brings pain. I eat ice cream, it's pleasurable. Ice cream is now above burning stove.
Perfect. So that, you graduate from that to adolescence.
Yeah.
And what does the adolescent then want?
Well, there's going to be principles involved now, because you might still love the ice cream more than the hot stove, but if you're just sitting there in the freezer at midnight downing all the ice cream, your mom wakes up in the morning and sees it, you're going to get in trouble. You still love the ice cream, but there's almost like a consequence to that. So you've developed a principle. I love ice cream, but if I sit up all night and eat all the ice cream, my mom's not going to be very happy with me. Mm-hmm. So then you do it that way, but it's still not unconditional.
Okay, so conditions are now starting to form.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I would say so.
I'd say so. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got these, the situation where you have these conditions and you want something, right? You have these desires,
right.
These, these goals, or whatever it is, these ends.
Yeah.
And so now you're gonna, go through the means to get to these ends.
Right.
That's adolescence.
Yep. And so I think the only way to then have these conversations that might deal with intent and what the intent is behind that and whether you're being unconditional or not is, I'm not saying you have to be an adult, but you have to be at least a young adult, maybe, right? If you stuck something between adolescence and adulthood, you got these young adults that are still adolescents, but they're breaching on adulthood. And that's not predicated on age at this point. It's probably predicated on maturity.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you could be a 50-year-old young adult.
Right. Because
they're everywhere.
You've got, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's like, we've got like 3 ages, right? We've got our physical age that we were born with, 1987, baby. And then you've got like my biological age.
He was prairie dogging it since 1987.
So, and then we've got my biological age, like how long my telomeres are, right? Like,
okay. Yeah.
And then we've got my mental state,
right.
How mature I am.
Right.
You could have my...
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to break them down. Yeah. So let's just assume everything else is caught up and where it's going to go. It's evolved to the point that you have all the materials to be an adult.
I'm a 32-year-old man-child here,
right,
and I'm developing maturity to become an adult.
Right. And that's where I think it's interesting to bring in some of these concepts, because what adult is going to be offended by a cuss word that was well-intended?
Right.
Like, I'm not saying what adult, like, age. I'm saying somebody who has got to this maturity level of unconditionality, everything else. How are you offended by that? Unless it is malicious and it's hurting somebody. Completely agree. That's not good at all.
Your spaghetti example is perfect. Like your 5-year-old daughter calls her teacher a boo-boo head, or the B word.
Yep.
The intent is the same,
and it's terrible. And there's gonna be severe consequences for that. Yeah, my 5-year-old has the same intent, and she calls my teacher's a boo-boo head. But what she had the same intent of calling her the B word or something like that.
Oh man.
100%. That's not okay.
However,
if my wife makes some spaghetti and all of a sudden Harper's like, that was the fucking awesomest spaghetti ever, Mom. I don't see the male intent in that. And in all honesty, like she could just say to me, like, you know what, Dad, that spaghetti was amazing, just wasn't going to define the spaghetti Mom made tonight because it was fucking incredible. Right. And so there's got to be a distinguishment between that. And I don't know if that happens without maturity, without pragmatism, without removing the ideological shtick that gets associated and stuck on taboos and everything else.
Right.
There's real things like I'm okay with. I'm all for civility, right? I mean, maybe even just say that as political correctness, but more, I'm all for people being civil. Yeah, dude, I subscribe. Yes.
We're here.
Please, yeah, man, let's be civil to each other. I never want, if something's offensive or terrible, like the N-word or things like that. No, man. I mean,
okay,
it's just, that's what it is right now. I'm not going to say that. And I'm not even going to say it to then, well, I meant this intent. No, I want civility. Is that how you say it?
Yeah. I mean,
but it gets slippery when it becomes like impingent upon.
Well, now you're being conditional, not saying the N-word. Like, well.
But I'm not. Yeah. See, that could be a tricky one, right? Like, not really, because honestly, I don't want to say it.
Yeah. Right? Like,
I'm not lying. Like, I'm being utterly unconditional in the fact that, like, no, man, I think this is terrible. It's got bad stuff associated with it. It hurts people. There's malintent. I could say it to people and maybe I'd look at that one person like, do I meant it this way? No. I know for a fact there's a good reason it could hurt somebody.
Yeah. Like the source of that came from malintent. Yeah. And the fact that you're trying to change that
I'm not
doesn't change. That. Yeah. Like,
but that spaghetti is still fucking awesome.
God damn it.
And it was, so I don't know how to break that down, but I was thinking about that a little bit I think they're interrelated. All three: unconditionality, intent, and maturation.
Okay. Yeah.
I think they kind of go hand in hand. They play off each other really nice. Because without being pragmatic or, being self-aware, you have to be self-aware before you become non-ideological. I mean, you can be an adolescent and be ideological. It completely makes sense, right? You can be a child and be nihilistic or extremist. It completely makes sense. I mean, but once that pragmatism starts coming in, what's necessary for that, I think, is a self-awareness, right? And that's going to come in adolescence. That self-awareness is then going to predicate into you becoming an adult. And then that self-awareness is what you have. It's just pragmatism, it's self-awareness, and your open ideas. Like I think we might have said this on the first episode. I can assure you that I'm wrong on almost everything I say. I'm just trying to become a little less wrong, but without open form dialogue, without the freedom of speech, things like that, without being able to have these post-float talks about like, I don't know if this is right, man, but this kept entering my head. I don't really learn anything. And the other really cool thing is you might be able to say it in your head like a savage. Like you got it nailed. Try saying it out loud to your friend. Try saying it out loud to somebody who's not your friend.
Try saying it to a 5-year-old.
Try saying it on podcast. No, you're right. If you can't explain it to your 5-year-old, you don't know it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much, that's my life in a nutshell. It's pretty profound. Six times. But it is an awesome experience whenever my daughter does ask me something, all of a sudden I just go in 1 minute or less, there's your answer. And I'm like, ooh, I know that pretty good, And then she asked me the other day she's like, Dad, didn't you say one time that we used to be fish? And I was like, oh boy. We better table that discussion, right? If you can't articulate in a couple sentences that your child can then recite back to you, you probably don't understand it. Man. And that's what's cool. I love that. I think that's awesome. I think it's a good indicator of thinking you know something and you don't. And I can assure you, I don't know anything.
Oof.
All I can kind of go is off my beliefs and everything else. And yes, that's predicated on faith. I think all of us have faith no matter what. I have to have faith in what I'm teaching my daughter is going to present her better opportunities and everything else. So, I mean, it's not like you have to just get rid of everything. It's just being accountable, being self-aware, being conscientious, taking the time to think about it every once in a while and remove yourself from the consistent bombardment of just society and norms and do this and be that and act this way and make sure everybody likes you. Because you can get really good at playing that game, man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can actually become a pro at it, and it could take you, it could put you in a high rise in Manhattan. It can do all kinds of things, but are you good? Are you living in resonance? I mean, are you in dissonance? What does that mean to you? What do you want? How do you define wealth versus status versus monetary, incentive? Those are all important questions. And unless you stop to think about it for every once in a while, they don't really come up, man. And you might think you've just been zombieing it for some time now.
Man, I like that. Live in resonance.
Yeah, kind of sounds weird, but I like it too. Well, I've always known that if I can lay in bed at night and I just have a resonance, like pretty much my value hierarchy is in order. My metrics, I'm viewing them correctly. I have good metrics, and but if I'm laying there and I feel some dissonance, I'm self-aware. I need to check in. I need to go to that accountability mirror, but I know I'm not living up to a value.
Well, I'd say it takes a certain level of maturity to have the self-awareness
100%.
to be able to do that at night.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Because there are people that are laying there in dissonance and sleep just fine.
What we're trying to say is grow up, people. Just grow the hell up, man.
Yeah.
That's such an
like
arbitrary
me.
thing to say.
Because
don't
man,
use us as examples.
I really am just like a 32-year-old man-child, just developing just self-awareness of what kind of trash I've been sleeping in, man. Because I've been living in dissonance right? for a long time. And
admitting it,
dang, like you got
the only
work
way
to do, boy.
Solve a problem is realizing there is a problem, and there's so many little cliches, I guess, that are just they're so exactly correct, man. Like, I think you're on the right path, man. In order to feel that way, you have to be self-aware. You have to be able to. I mean, I do it all the time. There's times when I do it, I'm like, oh, I don't want to think that about myself. But that's part of it.
You have to lose yourself to find yourself.
Yeah, that one confused me.
Gotta be deep, man. I don't know.
But yeah, to just going off of what you said, dude, like knowing that you're a man-child or whatever, it's still. I always kind of try to boil it down to this. I think unconsciously, I'm not saying people are consciously doing this or that I even know if people are doing this, but a lot of people are predicating to like this perfective idea when I really think it's simple as just progression. As long as you're progressing, you're doing the work, you're doing okay. Like I think a lot of people misdrew perfection and progression.
Yeah.
Like don't seek perfection.
No.
Seek progression.
Right.
Otherwise, it's literally, you're never going to ever stop. You're never going to do anything. But every time you get progress, celebrate that progress and continue to progress.
So let's get an example of that. I like that. Like,
what's your first
the example of the difference between perfection and progression? Which I got
one. Okay, good.
So
I thought you were banking on me. I was like, hold on.
So the Olympic gold medalist, is perfect.
Okay. Versus
the guy that is in 10th place,
right? But
comes back next year in 9th place.
Okay.
And he keeps, but he keeps going. He gets up and he keeps going. He gets up. Meanwhile, the gold Olympic medalist was born
a silver medalist.
Well, I mean, like they were just born. It's like they got it all. It's like that's perfect. It's like that's the finish line. But while this guy over here is like, didn't have that lottery of good genes, and has to get up and work hard and go back, and he falls down and he gets back up and he falls down and he gets back, and he doesn't have it like it wasn't just like laid out. It's like I don't know. I think that like that's progression. You're progressing versus like
I see what you're saying. I
instead of having like it's like you want to be you don't want to have that end because it's like now that the gold medal is I don't know. I'm kind of botching this here.
No, I think you have the right idea, but it immediately struck me as maybe a misrepresented example due to the fact that gold medalist probably did the same thing. Michael Jordan didn't just come out of the womb slam dunking and shooting threes, man.
Fair.
That guy failed more than anybody was willing to fail, but it was almost an obsession. You get what I'm saying? So
there you go.
It can't be a hierarchical in the stance that like this gold medalist wasn't privileged or something like that. Yeah, you can have. We're not created equal. I mean, genetically or anything like that, right? But that's why I don't like that example because it immediately jumps on like, whoa, what? No, that gold medalist could have tried just as hard as the 10th place person and vice versa. I mean, as long as they're progressing, right?
Okay.
I think perfection. A better example might be what is your motivation to get in shape? A lot of people's motivation to get in shape is usually to lose weight or vanity driven, to look a certain way, to fit into society a certain way. And that's where I think that muddled perspective comes in of perfection versus progression.
There we go.
And that's, I think, a better example, because so many people don't even realize they're on the wrong train, man, where they're getting on that scale after 3 months of a personal trainer. They're like, I'm not losing any weight. Mm-hmm. That's the wrong scale, man.
Right. You should be stepping
it's
on
the wrong metric.
Yeah. You shouldn't be measuring to look a certain way or to be accepted by anything. You should be measuring your health and how you feel.
Yeah, and your mental
physically
capacity.
and mentally.
I mean, for sure.
Both.
It's hilarious. You break that down biologically too, and it's like, I'm not being, catabolic enough or something like that. But wait, but you're anabolic in a lot of ways too. You've built a lot of things, not only just physically through more muscle mass, probably healthier everything. I mean, geez, you could just go down the list. But one of the biggest things too is the things that can't be measured. I mean, you can't measure that ability for that confidence, or maybe you're a little more secure, or that's progress. Perfection is this weird thing where next summer I'm going to have that beach body. I'm going to go buy the bikini right now. I'm super motivated. I'm going to motivate myself so hardcore to get in that bikini, go to this beach. Everyone's going to see me. That's the wrong thing. Fuck motivation. Like, find inspiration, and then turn that into drive, and that goes back to, I think, something else Mark Manson might have said too, but it was, a book about the backwards law or whatever. Like, a lot of people are always waiting for something to, what was it? Motivation to take action to create inspiration.
Yep. Yeah. It doesn't start with motivation.
It doesn't have to, man. You take action.
Straight up.
Right? Which creates inspiration, which motivates you. And there you go. You don't have to put this bikini in this closet, man. You just got to do and accept the progression is just going to present everything you were already trying to get. And here's the thing. It's not even what you're trying to get. It's progression. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
That's the whole definition.
Right.
It's progression, not perfection. That's silly. But I'm not saying anybody looks at me like, I'm going to be perfect or not, and I'm not going for progression. It's just, I don't think we take the time to stop and really simplify that.
It's crazy, man. In the 60s, there was this band called the Shags, and it's like three 13-year-old girls, they're 11, 12, 13-year-old girls. They're all sisters, and they have this album, and it's called The Philosophy of the World.
Okay.
And the chorus of this song is everybody wants what they. It's like, so it's basically everybody wants what they can't have, And
some smart 13-year-olds.
Oh man, yeah. It's so mind blowing, and the music is just out of this world.
It's good
to me. But yeah, it's like,
where are they from?
They're from somewhere here in America, but it's like the rich people want what the poor people got, 100%. And the poor people want what the rich people got.
Buddha's a perfect example of that.
The fat people want what the skinny people's gots, and the skinny people's wants what the fat people's gots. And that's how they say it.
Yeah, I get it.
But you can never please anybody in this world, is what they say. But I think that's
that's internal.
With that perfection mentality, that's what you'll
100%.
never be satisfied.
It's cyclical. It's this terrible slippery slope where you're just never good enough.
So you should just embrace
you're gonna be better
that.
Tomorrow.
You should embrace that I'm never gonna be satisfied and attitude.
Yeah.
And lean into it and just keep going.
And I think we touched on that last week too, where it was like, and if you are gonna embrace one, like, pick a good one, man. Pick a good one to suffer for. Pick a good one. Make sure it's worth it. And as long as you're willing to suffer for that desire, that's what it is. It's suffrage. Like, I was even talking to a buddy yesterday, just kind of going through some stuff, doing good, pulling his life together, doing awesome, man. It's super admirable. And I just threw the nugget in there without trying to give advice or whatever. But I was like, hey, man, so now it's time to suffer, dude. Like, physically. I don't think people understand just how important that is. Because guess what? Like,
it's a condition.
I love working out, man. If you do it unconditionally, you show up and you suffer every day. It's not, you never want to do it.
If you're going to live, it is a condition.
Oh,
you will suffer.
Yeah. I thought you meant work out so then I can conditionally look awesome.
That too.
Yeah. No, I got you. It is a condition. But I think this is crazy too. Like, when people say they don't have time and stuff like that, like, if you do hard work, man, if you grind and stuff like that, I'm not saying that's what you should be. Don't be like, well, now I feel like I should be doing something. No, but if you don't think you have time, I just can't subscribe to that, man. Like, I've seen people completely change their lives through whatever, exercise, whatever, do all these things, and they're just grinding, and it looks like a lot of work, and maybe starting a business and then doing this and doing other things. Before you know it, though, you get good at it. And then you're bored. And you know what? Then you push it to the next level.
Yep.
Progression.
Yep.
But you have to be willing to callous your mind a little bit. You have to be willing to hurt yourself. Like, there's no finish line to physical exercise.
Oh, man.
Like, you don't just get a workout for 3 months, look good, and that's it. No, it sucks every time.
Yeah.
It's terrible every time. And it's terribly amazing.
And you're never done.
You're never done.
Like, done working out now.
Never, man.
You know,
Never. It's like I love David Goggins because he's always talking about stuff like that. Or he met this NFL player he said on an airplane, and he came up to me and he's like, Goggins, hey man, how do you stay savage, man? How do you keep that drive? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I always want to. He's like, what do you want to be when you grew up or something like that? And the guy was an NFL player, so he's like, I want to be an NFL player, but not, I want to be a starter on an NFL team or something like that. He's like, now I've made it there, and I just don't have that desire anymore. And he's like, then be the best, be the most valuable player. What are you doing? You don't stop. There's no finish line. You keep going.
Yeah.
So you ran a 5K. Awesome. Run a 10K. You lost 20 pounds. Awesome. Like, the thing is, it's just progression. It's that simple. And it's not like you have to go be an NFL player. That doesn't matter. It's not this hierarchical thing where one progressive thing that one person does is better than another progressive thing. It's just the fact that internally you can be accountable for the fact that you're doing it. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's not all that matters. Not how you're observed externally and how it may look like you did it, or you're doing it.
The sake of doing it.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about learning a skill. Like, I like going and learning how to kickbox a little, or not kickbox a little bit, but do a little kicking and taekwondo and stuff like that. And I'm terrible, man. My hips hurt, but it's fun. And the cool thing is, not only is it fun, it's kind of like I get to cheat because I feel like I progressed every minute. Where somebody that maybe is doing it for 20 years is like had a shitty practice, and they're like, God, I was just off today. I get to have my cake and eat it too, man. Because I'm starting at rock bottom with anything like that. So
only one way to go.
Yeah, literally, right? And so,
and if like people think that they don't have time, put a screen timer on your phone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And see how much time you spend, because I did that, and I was like, oh damn,
3 hours,
4 hours on Facebook. Gotta get the hell off of there, man. And that was it. Like it was like a light switch turned in my head. It's like, once I saw the numbers, the data right in front of me, bam, put the screen timer on your phone, get your shit together.
Yeah, that's the big one for me that I always bitch out on is getting up early in the morning. Like, I know if I got up, I'm just kind of like that little moment at night. But I mean, I get up decent with my kids and stuff, get up at 7:30 or whatever. But if I just got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm already done with my workout.
Yep.
I'm done. Yep. And so that's my challenge to myself, and it's gonna suck because it's the mentally hardest thing. I don't know why.
Callous that mind, bro.
Yep. But it becomes routine when you do it often enough, and
then you'll plateau, and then that'll be your new norm. Yeah. And then you'll be able to build on top of that plateau.
Yep. It's beautiful, and you're gonna fail. That's the other cool thing is there's gonna be ebbs and flows or whatever, but there's no excuse, man. It's on me, and progress to not do that again, and to keep going. And that's it. You never get back a lost workout. It's gone forever.
Yeah.
It's gone forever.
Just like sleep.
Just like sleep, yeah. That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Not that I know enough about the neuroscience of sleep, but it is interesting, some of the factoids that have come out about that.
Oh, man, we ran out of time. I wonder how long we've been out. Damn. I guess...
we went an hour?
Yeah, that's been,
well, we just want to say sorry because there's probably a point there where we didn't realize we ran out of time.
I don't know how long we went there, but we kind of
yay! We made it an hour. I can't believe we did that, dude. So we're longer than an hour. Awesome, guys. So, God, we always forget to talk about like the fucking the substantial things. Like, we're starting a podcast. Subscribe below. All this stuff. Tell your friends, man. Eat your spaghetti and drink your LaCroix, right? But no, anything to, do you have any bands or anything coming up that this will air before anybody sees it?
No, I don't have any shows coming up. We're just practicing for the studio right now. We're going to be recording this October.
Nice.
Pretty excited for that.
And is that Mr. McMoney?
That'll be Pure Brown.
That's right.
Mr. McMoney is going to have some studio time scheduled here pretty soon, though.
Oh, you should also throw out there that you would like to produce. You guys have created a a micro batch of pure brown L. Right?
Yeah. So I do
Or no,
play
it's-
in
yeah.
a video game cover band, mostly Nintendo songs here in Lincoln, called Pure Brown. And our drummer has made some pretty tasty pure brown beer.
So if anybody's out there, one of these little local microbreweries or whatever, wants to help with a bigger batch, it'd probably be pretty cool. Pure brown.
Heck yeah.
I don't have anything, so thanks guys for listening. And I won't be here next week.
Yeah,
So
I'll have a special
going-
guest next week.
Yeah,
So.
I'm going to Iceland next week. So Jesse's going to be floating non-solo. We'll have a guest. We're going to be bringing on Jesse Brady to come shoot the breeze with you guys. He is obviously a better talker than both of us, and he should probably start a podcast.
I agree.
All right. Love, hugs, all that good stuff. Bye-bye.
Well, peace.
That one was much smoother.
Yeah.
Dude, can't believe we talked that long.